What I'm starting to do in this industry is I'm starting to share, just like when you and I have been going through this. This is the second time we're doing this now. When it comes to a transaction, I'm starting to realize a lot of people don't have the transparency into what happens in a real estate transaction. It's a big, huge, almost like a black hole of people not understanding what happens behind the scenes, what does an agent do, what are the different stakeholders that come in. And so, I mean, we'll get into that in just a bit, but really, we'll keep it simple and first start with something about how your experience has been thus far, and that you don't have to you can keep it as short or as long. Like this is just a regular conversation. So, how's your experience been so far working with me and my team?
So, just to set the context, we met in the Diwali event, right? And
Yeah.
we spoke about it. You asked me to follow up a couple of weeks later. We followed up, and then I was very skeptical about the market. So you helped me understand what is going on in the current market, and you were not just convincing me, but you were supporting that with data. And I'm an engineer, so I can relate with data. So if the data supports it, I can take better decisions.
Right.
Then you put me at hook to make a decision whether to make an investment now, get into the market or not.
Right.
So I think as a new investor, we have a lot of apprehensions whether we are making the right investment or not, because the easiest thing is to invest in stock market, and most of the folks like me, like I was very comfortable with the stocks. I know what's going on, but I wanted to diversify. That was my motivation behind going into real estate. So, but you helped me through the market to understand what are the pros and cons. Why is it now a good time rather than tomorrow? Then we are off to the search, and once we are in the search, initially I was like, okay, let's take a look, see how test the waters and see how it goes. But then the process in our case happened very, very fast.
Yeah.
So we did a lot of groundwork before going to the property, so we were kind of prepared. And then on the decision we were making at that point is whether everything matches up to what we had decided offline. So we decided to go with the property, and there were a lot of apprehensions because it's my first investment.
Yeah, and I mean, I remember you were like, "Hey, should we go the single family route and make that an investment?" Then we talked about multifamilies and we did the pros and cons of the multifamily versus that, and then that led to you and Sahana actually coming out in the next few days itself, and us looking at the multifamily home.
Yeah. And there were so many questions. You helped us with data, of course, like property management fees, how it was a little different in this transaction compared to the industry standard, kind of the communication. At that point, initially I was like, is Passi, will he live up to his word? But during the transaction, I really felt like you were customer obsessed and you were really passionate in the industry.
Thank you.
So I did feel a difference, because there are a lot of transactions which I wanted to start, but I fell short very soon because of apprehensions, and we don't know what we don't know, and then it gets delayed.
Yeah.
But having your support meant that I could justify the decisions with data and then just move forward. And it's not just about buying the first transaction. What was unique about our first opportunity was you educated me about a lot of aspects, which put me at ease to make more transactions.
Right.
And here we are on the second transaction already. So
exactly. So we're actually sitting in a property that has gone pending with Avi and his family, and this is actually a single family home and not the multi-family that he purchased with me some time back. We're actually having a conversation. There's no other furniture in this house. This is the only staging furniture, but this is an amazing investment that he's gone into. But we'll get into this home later at some point. Let's continue talking about the first transaction that we closed for you, which was the multifamily. And tell me a little bit about what happened on day 4. Like you guys were flying out basically a couple of days, or was it? I remember there was a day you guys were flying out. Is the day we went pending?
We had 1 week before we had plans to travel to India, and then let's see. There was no harm in viewing the property. Then we liked the property, and so my next question was, not be here.
Yeah.
What kind of troubles are we going to get because I'm not here? Let's wait. But then if you wait, you know how the industry,
Yeah.
you will not get the same opportunity again.
Absolutely.
So, but Passi put me in ease and said that, like, hey, don't worry, I can hold the fort here. You can go enjoy your vacation, and everything was smooth. Our communication was super tight. I was like responding to him. He was very responsive, and not just him, his whole team was helping me with a very tight communication. I think, see, we can buy these properties off of Redfin agents, and
Yeah.
we can try to cheap out our commission. But I
Right.
feel like if there is a value that we get, which you provided, because if I had gone with other agent, I can tell that I might have not closed or gone with the multifamily. Because you
Yeah.
provided with me with data is the only reason that we actually made me at least forward.
And thank you for sharing that, because agents are available time it does it, right? I mean, there's all these services, and the whole point of it is how much time does your agent actually make for you?
Yeah.
And what is the responsiveness? I mean, what we try to do at Meet the Passis Real Estate is make sure that communication is tight. So thank you for sharing that, and make sure that any roadblock is. I mean, we try to like avoid those roadblocks even before they happen. But if they're about to happen, we try to give you a heads up. And then I hope you felt that way, that when deadlines were coming up, that we were on top of it and made sure that you weren't rushing. Because I remember you were in Thailand in the middle of your trip too. We made sure that all the difficult stuff was, all the complex stuff in the deal was done before you took that trip, so you were at ease and you could disconnect.
Exactly. And so, what's also nice about you, that transaction was you not only spoke about closing the existing transaction, but after that also, like how can we enhance the rental value? What do we need to do to keep the renters happy,
Right.
so that they will stay for longer? So it was not just the support for the transaction, but everything after that, and the education in the process was really valuable at least for me.
Thank you. That's good feedback, because that just shows that if all the work that goes into doing the research for folks like you, and I also have to give some kudos to you on the fact that. So I love when I'm working with people that have logical, reasonable questions, because then I know how I can support them. And Avi and I got to know each other through Zoom, and I could gauge that he's going to have a ton of questions, which I love, by the way, because then I know how I'm supporting you, and I know exactly what to get ahead of as a realtor. Because if you're a data guy, then I know that I have to get a ton of data. But like the good thing about you now is, because now this is the second transaction that we've done together, you now know that there is an angle of aesthetics, there's an angle of deal strategy, there's an angle of how to plan to make sure that we have certain wins. So like, for instance, that win that we had in the last transaction, right? We went under contract at a certain number, and then we got a significant number back. And thank you for trusting me with that strategy, because it is a great deal, but at the same time, everybody would love to get whatever they can. I mean, the whole point of it is like, yes, some folks can afford and some folks can't afford, but everybody wants to get something back if they can, right? So let's talk a little bit about how that experience went. And I know you were mostly traveling through while the whole negotiations were happening in the background, but if you could share a little bit of light on that.
So your approach, the unique approach was not to, and I have done this mistake before, wherein 10 years before I was kind of lowballing the offer, I would never win the offer, and then the market has moved on, and then I regret like, oh, why didn't I make that offer? Did I think about few thousand? But your approach was to win the offer, and then once in contract, use that negotiation power to negotiate after the inspection is done.
Right.
So I was very skeptical whether that would actually work. Did I end up overpaying it? But when I did see the final decision that the number came back,
Yeah.
then I was like, see, this is the trust building process. At
Absolutely.
that time, we nailed the whole trust building process, that okay, now I can trust, because I knew that was not the first transaction. Now I have more confidence in like the decisions that needs a little bit more trust down
Right.
the line.
Of course, and it's a nervous thing to do. I mean, what you're feeling is completely human, because for you and for your family, these are big, large decisions. I mean, you guys are just like all the folks that work around here in decent, really, really good companies. You guys are stretching yourselves, making sure that you're protecting your family for large, long-term decisions. And like, even if we can have some short-term wins out of it, why not, right? I mean, you guys are big thinkers, but at the same time, it requires the ability to like be brave and be courageous to be able to write that check, because you're like, Hey man, I'm a little nervous about this, but I hope this is the right decision we're making. And I'm proud of you guys for everything that you guys did. I'm very appreciative of the fact that even though we were 12 and a half hours in the opposite transaction in an opposite time zone for a good chunk of the previous transaction that we did, we were on top of it. I mean, you should be. Some kudos to you. Like in the middle of the night, I remember like at 3 or 4 in the morning, I was getting messages from local India time from me. I'm like, this guy is on top of it. And I like the fact that he's on top of it because he knows exactly what he wants. And I'm glad that you do. And when I told your wife that you're a visionary and, I was doing that because I believe it. I do. Like, you need, it's not just guts. It's also like a certain amount of, like, yes, obviously you talked about trust. It's also about having a clear vision and having a partner alongside, because that's really how I see myself here, is having a partner alongside to be able to make sure that I can make those visions and dreams come true, because that's really what it boils down to.
Another thing which was very valuable for me is like during the process, it helped me to understand what an LLC means and how we can protect yourself, and your guidance to go approach different channels to figure that out was also very valuable. So like it's these small things which kind of build up in usually when I buy, that ends up either being okay, let's do it some other time kind of thing.
Yeah.
That changed into okay, I would need with these, and then
So let's keep this one short, and let me see, because maybe there's one or two things I would love to hear from you on. So would you say this was like let's just talk about the first transaction, as we're still going through the second. Would you say this was a 5-star experience for you? I mean, that's really, and I kind of find it silly that agents actually love asking for that, because I really, how, and I, like, so him and I went out for dinner recently as well to celebrate that, the win that the family's had. But at the same time, and then the only reason I'm asking this sort of candid or almost scripted question about the 5-star review is really because that's really how the business has been for the last 30 years. All the agents are like, hey, do you think this was a 5-star experience? And I'm asking because for me, it's a subjective thing. Like, you can be like, oh, it's a 4.5. It's a 4.75. Really, we are striving to get you 6 out of 5, man. That's really what we're trying to do at Meet the Passis. Like, if we're not trying to over-promise and under-deliver. We're trying to stick to the promises that me and my team make. Because if we don't do that, then we're not doing our job.
yeah, I would say the transaction is definitely top notch. Not just that, the education was top notch. I come from Amazon. I know you have a background in Amazon, so I could relate to that customer obsession, and that clearly showed here. I think 5-star is just not for the transaction itself, but the whole education and what happens of the transaction.
Yeah.
That is also has been very special, and I feel like I have the knowledge in real estate that I had before this transaction.
Good, thank you. And the last question I would ask: did you ever feel like you were talking to a sales guy in this whole process, or even now, like even with the second transaction? Did you ever feel like, I know, like I have a verbose personality where it comes across a bit too strong sometimes, but like, did you ever feel like that I felt like a sales guy to you?
Initially, I felt like it's a lot of promise.
Okay.
I sidelined all the other agents I was working with, even though you felt a little verbose, and I didn't know whether you were going to kind of take me across the board.
Yeah.
But like every decision we had to take during the process kind of converted that to like a confidence builder.
Good.
So now I don't second doubt it. Like, I know you will, whatever you're talking, like you're just giving me more detail. That's why you come out like that. But no, definitely not. But initially, yes, I did feel like a little bit of a sales pitch.
And I appreciate the honesty. I think that's really good feedback, and that's why I keep asking Money to join the team, because you need somebody that's a bit more mellow and not just like the loud personality that I have. Because for instance, let's say if it wasn't you and me, and if it was Sahana and Money, right, having a conversation, clearly they would not be.
And it comes both ways, I think, because you are so passionate to give a good
it's the
service.
passion.
You want to grow your business, and you're really on top of things. You are customer obsessed. So
it really is. That's a good gauge.
Yeah, but you converted that into a positive one now. even though you give more than the typical suggestions I get from the real estate agent, I can appreciate that because that adds to my learning and training process.
Thanks, man. I hope this everything stays on track with this one. Fingers crossed, and I'm pretty optimistic that we're going to close really well on this one. I won't go into the details about this property from privacy point of view, but what I can tell you is that this man has made a very smart decision. We got this at a much lower price. The listing agent didn't do bare minimum. I mean, we have a checklist that we follow when we list a property. And really, he got it at a really good deal, and he made some really fast decisions. And so the story of going from showing at 5 p.m. to under contract and mutual at 9 p.m. is actually Avi. Avi is the man that his wife actually brought me food when we were sitting at this exact table on the other end of the room, and the kids were sleeping in the car. By the way, that's how determined these guys are as investors. Like I was I was telling Money this. The kids are sleeping in the room. She comes all the way, and the kids are now and he's walking her through the whole house, sharing the vision. And that's what it takes, a husband and wife together, and they have that. They're both walking together. They're both discussing pros and cons. Every family has one person who wants to fly and one keeps them grounded. I have the same thing. My wife does the same thing for me, but it's good to bounce it off. He did exactly that. He was smart about it, got his wife, she signed it off. She's like, okay, I believe in your trust, I trust you. And I love seeing that. And that's important. Because if you come to me and you tell me that you haven't had a conversation with your kids and your parents or anybody else, please do that before you grow up. Because really, they have a plan. At least he has a plan, and then he makes sure that she aligns with it and she gets where he's coming from. And that's really how it's supposed to be done. Because you're making everybody's life difficult if you aren't aligned about what clarity you have. He has clarity. He knows exactly what he wants. There's a lot of interesting things that we're trying to solve for this property that I won't go into details of. But he knows what he wants, and that's important. And at that note, I'm going to say, man, I'm enjoying this a lot with you. And I hope that we can keep adding value. And like I said, the job doesn't end when the property closes. The job for me actually begins then. So hopefully I can stay a partner for you then, and we can continue to keep making this happen. Thanks again, man. Appreciate it.